about a third of people with what happens won't make it to hospital, and then a third of people won't make it out of hospital, and a third of people will either have a stroke or brain damage. When I was lying in the theatre for the 4.5 hours, I just remember praying and just having such a peace that I wasn't alone and God was there with me. And it was just, he calmed me, my nerves. I wasn't scared, and he was my rock.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing, because I did think I was going to die. I didn't think it was going to,
I think one of the Bible sections that my uncle sent was, I think it was the day after Elaine was in operation, was Psalm 121. I found just the opening verses of that are a real help when facing death. It's I lift my eyes to the hills. That is lifting your eyes to the dangers that are ahead, anything that comes your way, and then you have to decide, well, where does my help come from when I'm facing, life ending, or I'm facing some suffering, or I'm facing some challenges? Well, my help comes from the Lord, who made the heavens and the earth, and there is nothing else. And it's not like it makes it very easy, or you're not worried, or you're not scared, or you're not frightened. You absolutely are, but you have a confidence and an assurance and a sure hope.
Well, welcome to a special edition of our Change Lives podcast, and I'm delighted to be joined by Colin and Elaine. And it's great to be here doing this because we were last doing this about 4 years ago. It was November 2020 when we sat down and did this was back in the days of COVID, and we'd all discovered Zoom, and we were on a Zoom live stream thing and talking about you guys and stuff around your Christian faith and various things you've faced as a couple. So it's really nice to be able to follow up all these years down the line. Now, there is a burning question, because I watched back our interview that we did. I was watching this last night. And there's one thing I think folk tuning in are desperate to know, and it's to do with the band reunion.
Yeah.
There was talk of a reunion last time we sat down.
There was.
And the band at that point, am I right in saying it's called Weird Number 17?
That's right.
Where are we? What's the story?
We are, but we haven't actually done a gig. But we have been out for numerous curries and discussed playing music. So
that's key.
Yeah. So we're moving in the right direction, and we'll maybe bring that in some of the story later on, because Elaine did ask that the band might get back together, so we might elaborate on that.
This is actually part of the promotional tour.
So this could be part of the
Graham Norton's next. Well, we should do introductions. So those tuning in, my name is Paul. I'm one of the ministers at the Tron Church. But more interestingly, you guys. So just give us a quick 2 minutes on who you are, what you do. Yeah, sure. Colin, do you want to check in?
Yeah, sure. So not much has changed over the last few years in terms of work for me. I still teach in a big Glasgow secondary school as a pupil support teacher. I have the pleasure of looking after the S2 year group in that role. Still coming to the Tron. We've been in the Tron 9 years now.
Wow.
So it's still coming along and serving in different ministries as well, and Welcome and Growth Group as well. Also playing at Farsi, play music at Farsi. And yeah, you mentioned music. Music's still a big part of my life. Play in the praise gathering choir, playing the band for that, and in a male voice choir called Father's Hall as well. And hopefully Weird Number 70 will be getting going again, as you mentioned. So yes, that's me.
Very good. Good. Hello.
And I am still working at university. I lecture with students that want to become teachers, both postgrads and undergrads. And what else has happened? I had a birthday with a 0 in it during the last 4 years, which was lovely.
Good to hit 30 at last.
Yes. and still into my fashion, and enjoy buying, remodeling, and wearing lots of nice clothes.
Very good. Well, it's lovely to be able to sit down with you guys and just to catch up since we last spoke. And yeah, there's been some major events that have gone on, and particularly as you look back on this past summer. So why don't you tell us a little bit about just what's happened? We can talk about how you found that, but just tell us some of the kind of key events that have happened over these recent months.
Right, it started about, I think it was the 24th of June. I was on my way to my graduation with my students, and throughout the graduation I started to feel not too well. I had, I think, a cold, sort of underlying
you did have a cold for a while,
and I started to get a sore head. And I remember, I was celebrating with my students and speaking to their mums and dads and their carers and also their friends and family. And my head started to get really, really sore. But I thought, I can't leave. This is a special day for my students and I'm always the last to leave. So just like church. And I thought I should stay. But I remember as I left, I was walking across George Square and there was a sort of demonstration on and there was police. And I nearly went and spoke to the police and said, I don't feel too well. And I was like, don't be silly, Elaine. Just keep walking, get to the bus stop and get home. So I got home and I said to Coles that my head felt a bit fuzzy. And I thought, so I think I went to bed that night.
You occasionally get migraines, you'd had the cold. We just kind of put it down to generally just being a bit unwell.
And I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I carried on working. I still felt unwell. I still woke up with the headache and carried on.
You were wearing sunglasses as well because the
I
light
felt
was affecting
a bit like a diva in the house because I kept wearing my sunglasses because the light was hurting my eyes. And then Friday was the first day of my holiday. You'd been off for a couple of days, and I thought, no, we just had a lazy day. And then on Saturday, we were invited to a barbecue at one of our old neighbours, and I will go to an opening of an envelope. And it's unlike me to say no. And I was just like, Colin, I don't feel too well. So we just stayed in and we had another lazy day.
You kept taking painkillers to kind of take that. It seemed to be taking the edge off of it, but it just wasn't shifting. And then our team were unwelcome on the Sunday. So you weren't even able to get up, and I came in and spoke to a few of our church family, and they were thinking, this is not like Elaine, quite concerned. So I went home and we phoned 111. Just to run it past them to say this headache's not shifting, and because of some of our health history and Elaine's health history, they asked her to go to an out of hours GP.
So
pick up there?
Went there. And the doctor was lovely, and she's like, I think you should go to the Queen Elizabeth. So I said, that's fine. I said, my husband's just outside. We can go straight to the Queen Elizabeth. So we went to the initial assessment unit, I think. And my head was still really sore, and I asked for some paracetamols when I got there.
You were there for a little while, and I think your head was getting sore. The nurse came out with some painkillers, and then eventually got seen by a doctor.
And it was quite interesting because the first thing they did was test me for COVID, and I was positive. So
that's probably what the cold and
So
and then you're thinking, is that
maybe that's what it is. And then the doctor was quite keen to send me for a scan because with my MS, because we get regular scans, I was aware, and the medical staff were aware, that I have 2 aneurysms. So the doctor sort of mentioned that and said, I'd like to send you for a scan. So that was about, I think, we arrived there about...
We arrived about 3 or 4, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning.
I went for a scan. And it was really interesting because I was in a wee cubicle and the curtain was just slightly ajar, and I could see the doctor at the computer screen because he was just across from me, and I saw him get the nurse that had been working with me, and there was just something that I could tell that my results were a few, because she came straight in to just check on me, and I was like, oh, there's something, there was just something. And then the doctor came to speak to me and explained that I had a ruptured aneurysm and I need to go for emergency surgery this morning. So I was we were quite calm. We were just like, all right.
And this information comes to you, it's that you're not expecting it,
Yeah.
and it's the sort of thing that happens to other people, you know.
Yeah.
It's, so I think we were in a bit of shock, I think, but we were actually
quite calm.
You were.
Yeah.
That made me calm. And the medical staff said that I should go home to go and just to get some stuff for Elaine and go and get a bit of sleep before I come in. There wasn't much sleep happening when I come, let me tell you. But I did do that and came back in.
Yeah, and meanwhile the anaesthetist came down just to check if I had any allergies and just to speak to me, and then the surgeon came down to speak to me. And this was one thing that I hadn't told Colin because I didn't want to surprise him. But the surgeon was explaining all about the operation, and he said about a third of people with what happens won't make it to hospital, and then a third of people won't make it out of hospital, and a third of people will either have a stroke or brain damage. And I was like, all right, okay, thank you. So, and I think because I'd left this headache for 6 to 7 days, because he explained that, I think it's called thunderclap.
Yeah.
And it's like being hit on the back of your head with a baseball bat.
Right.
So he was like, you've obviously got quite a high pain threshold. I said to him, it was quite fuzzy, but I kept using the word fuzzy.
Rather than extreme pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was quite honest with me.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
was
but
good.
you didn't communicate that with me when I
No,
came in the
I
morning.
didn't want to communicate that with Colin
No.
until.
And I stayed off Google,
Yes.
which
That's very
is
sensible.
maybe wise in that situation. So, I saw you up to theatre.
Which was really lovely.
In the morning, so you went in with the staff,
And
and then I stayed in the hospital waiting on the call for you to get out of surgery.
Yes, you had a wee peck on the cheek.
I did get a peck on the cheek. Yes, I did.
As I went into theatre. And I was in theatre, I didn't have my phone, and it was really interesting because they were just all checking on me, and all the staff were lovely.
Yeah.
And then there was a delay, wasn't there?
Yes,
Yeah,
because
I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah, there was a delay, and then they actually had to decide on who to operate with first. Right. So I think the other person might have had a stroke, so I think they had to go with that person. But because they said I was quite calm, then they checked with me. The anaesthetists were lovely, and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm totally fine." And it was interesting because I remember saying I can't remember if it was the anaesthetist or the nurses, that I'm really calm. I said, I'm a Christian, I know where I'm going, but I'm worried about my husband. And that's how I kind of phrased it to them. So the 4.5 hours for me went fairly quickly. Yeah. I was lying in theatre.
Yeah. And I just assumed at this point Elaine was going through, obviously the staff were very busy, so they didn't have a chance to contact me. So I didn't get contacted till later on when I was expecting Elaine to be out of surgery, but got the information to say she was yet to go in. Right, okay. So yes, I was. I think the best way to describe it was burst at that point. It was a long day, and it was just getting longer at that point.
Yeah. Well, it felt like a spa for me because I was just lying there. I didn't have my phone. Yeah. I was praying lots. I was singing songs because we'd just been in the praise gathering choir, and so I was singing songs because I remembered my words. And I think I was playing I Spy with myself, so I could remember what was in the room. I won it all the time because I'm quite competitive, so I was quite pleased with that one. And actually, as I said, it went quite fast for me because the next thing they came in, they anaesthetised me, and that was me.
That was you out.
Out for the count.
So that was the first stage, and then obviously I get the call to say Elaine was out of surgery. Had regained most of your movement. but didn't have a lot of speech.
Yep.
Which was obviously quite.
Yep.
It didn't look great at that point. Then the surgeons obviously got to be honest as well. And I think what we learned was that you went pretty much straight to HDU rather than the recovery
right.
area after the operation. So they were obviously a bit kind of worried, and as was I. So I got to see you maybe an hour after you were out, and again plugged into it was that the sort of thing you would see on television, you know, or a movie where you see the person plugged into all the machines, and it's just that kind of idea of it. These are the sort of things that happen to other people. It was almost a bit of a
felt quite surreal, did it? And
yeah, it did. It was almost kind of you didn't really believe what was happening, and I think it was just lack of sleep and everything as well, you know. So it was quite a lot to kind of take in.
So I think I eventually woke up, didn't I? From
I don't think you remember.
I don't remember much about Monday night.
I did speak to you. You did tell me you loved me, which was good. That was reassuring. She doesn't remember seeing it, you know. So,
I do remember.
And I actually once I got home, I called the nurse just to check in on Elaine, and the nurse said, "Does she smile a lot?" Right, and I said, "Yes." She tends to, but I think I was a bit worried because she's sitting with a smile on her face, and they were just worried there's some neurological issue. But we would rather she was smiling than frowning, so that was all good. So we have laughed about that since. She continues to smile.
Well, I'm always glad for that whenever I'm preaching. I look for you two. It's like get the warmest response. Doesn't matter what I'm saying.
No. So I remember, I think I must have maybe regained sort of something, sort of, I suppose when you were there, although I don't remember that.
Yeah.
But sort of early hours of Tuesday morning, because I remember them asking 5 questions. It was, where are you? What's the day? What's the month? What's the year? And it was either who's the Prime Minister or who's the President of America. Yeah. And it was so strange because I was like, I know this, but I could not retrieve it. Yeah, and I was like, I kept saying, I know this. And I had a lovely nurse, Emma, who was just so lovely, and she was like, don't worry, you know. And I remember as the morning, I didn't have a watch on, but I remember as it got lighter outside, I remember like I was getting one answer, and I was like, and I was saying it with so much passion, it was like, the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. And I was like I was so pleased that I got it. And I think as the morning went on, the kind of early hours.
You definitely get more words back. Yeah. And you're definitely improving in the Tuesday morning. The staff were really happy with how you were doing, and it was a much quicker recovery than I think they'd anticipated. Definitely. You're quite determined as well. So I think it was the next day you started practicing your alphabet.
Yes, it was one morning, and it was before Colin was coming, and I thought, I'm going to practice the alphabet in 1 to 100. And I remember doing ABC, and I didn't get D, and I thought, right, okay, what is it? So I eventually got to E, and then I went back to the beginning, and I kept going back to the beginning if I made a mistake, and then 1 to 100, and then Emma said, will we phone your husband? And I was like, oh, that would be so good. And I felt like a little primary school because I was like...
You were very, I was very proud. It was a very proud moment. It actually was quite emotional, you know, the fact that Elaine had been struggling so much and the prognosis wasn't great, and here she was telling me on the phone that she'd get through her alphabet, you know, so it was amazing.
I know, and I think just continued to...
Yeah, you were a few days in high dependency. You got out there a wee bit sooner than probably anticipated, and then you were in the general ward for...
5, 4...
Well, the neurology ward, it wasn't general, the neurology ward for a few days, and then got home, and that was prior to a second operation as well.
Yes.
So, despite getting through that one, we still had this other op kind of hanging.
So
they didn't manage to get everything done in the first one. It was complicated.
So what was the time period between the first and second?
It was
6 weeks.
Probably about that. 6. Yeah, it was 5 or 6 weeks between. So.
And talk us through those sort of intervening weeks. Like, what was going through your mind? How are you feeling at that point?
I think
there you go.
It was interesting because you kind of thought, I wish they had done everything in the first operation, and I was totally aware why I had to have the second operation, because there was too much blood, and that's why they couldn't do the second operation. So, but it was something that I suppose was hanging over your head a wee bit. So it was.
So it was just, you know, support from, and we'll talk about church family later on as well, a lot of support that way, and advice and who to speak to, and we just had to kind of pursue things with the staff we were dealing with to find out what the plan was, and it was. And in between as well, you had a couple of trips to hospital and a couple of extra trips, just because there were some strange symptoms that we'd been told anything in these kind of areas we should contact hospital, and so Elaine had a couple of other stays as well, which was
Yeah, it was.
I think we called it the hospital hokey cokey.
Yes, I was in out.
And, you know, I was keeping people updated and kind of WhatsApp messages as well. I think that's the way I described it. But it was pretty tiring.
Yeah, because I think I probably spent most of July in sort of Govan.
Yeah.
Right, Govan Airbnb.
Yes, that's what we like to, yeah.
And I think I've had 2 ambulances.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I've been in an ambulance
Blue
twice.
lights
Yes. So yeah, that I've never done that before. So
Let's hope we don't have to do that again. That would be excellent.
So good. But yeah, and then the second operation kind of came round.
Yeah.
And the nurses were very pleased on that day to see me, and it was really lovely because they saw me at the beginning of the journey.
So they'd already seen a bit of progress, and obviously we had that last hurdle, but everything went really, really smoothly.
The operation was a bit longer than we had anticipated. We didn't ask why. We just asked if it was successful.
It's been more complicated, but it was successful, and we've had no further trips to hospital.
No, which has been so good.
You have been recovering well.
Yes. Yeah. So just taking the tablet and beginning to do a bit more each day, so kind of challenging myself, but resting as well. I'm now back to jogging.
Yes.
Are you really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I'm upping it every week, just doing a wee bit more.
Yeah. You've had lots of advice from different medical staff as well, nurses and brain injury support and stuff like that as well. So they've been very much encouraging. You know, don't push yourself too much, but build it up. Yeah. You know, and if it's too much, then just stop.
And I'm sure she said that I shouldn't be doing the ironing. I'm sure she said that at one
just
point.
Domestic chores, cooking or ironing.
Ironing has never been done by Elaine. That's it. But I actually quite like ironing, so it's all good.
I know.
It's all good.
I just encourage you because you like it.
I do. It's a pleasure.
Very good. So what do the kind of months ahead look like? Have you got a kind of a rough plan of how things might play out?
Yes, I'm still off work at the moment. I finish an important medication kind of mid-February, the 14th of February. And I think that's the kind of, I think I'll be feeling better. Yep. And not as tired.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I know the 2 things that I know that I bruise really easily at the moment because my blood's so thin.
It's a blood thinner due to the stent. Just to prevent Elaine having a stroke. So. And
then if I cut myself, I've got to phone 999.
Oh wow, okay.
So I can't do any food preparation, and I have to be very careful when I'm sewing.
Yes.
But yeah, do you know?
But if you'd said that was all we would be dealing with at this point, at the beginning of summer, I would have.
I know.
Been delighted with
really,
that. So
it's quite amazing as you look back, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Just Elaine, you know, being entirely herself. Especially when something's happened to the brain. It was obviously a big worry, but
absolutely.
We're very, very thankful.
Yeah,
well, it's a joy to be able to sit here and have this conversation. So that's great. So looking, that's been quite a tumultuous few months. And continues to be for you both. As you reflect on that, what would you say, as Christians, what have you learnt about the Lord and the way in which He's helped you over these past months? What are your reflections on that as you look back on all those difficult moments and so on?
I think there's a lot we've learned over this time. But it's really just the fact that God is in control and is sovereign is the big thing that you know. But it's often not until you're in a situation where you need to rely on God as your comfort that it really hits home. I was actually listening to the Confronting Christianity podcast from earlier in October that Rebecca McLaughlin does, and she was speaking to Ellie Wiener about her PhD in Job. And she was given a kind of overview of that, and obviously talking about Job's situation and how it took until chapter 37 before God responded, and what Job was looking for was a why. Why has this happened to me? Why am I experiencing this? And God's answer was who he was, not why it had happened. And I just thought that really articulated really well, I think, on reflection, how I was feeling as well. So, God understands the things we don't know, and God controls the things we don't rule. And that was what Ellie kind of really emphasised in that part. I thought that's what I've really taken from this experience, and that understanding that's why we can get comfort from God. It's not the reason why things happen, but it's who God is, and the fact that Jesus died and was resurrected, and that's what we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, and especially I think when I was lying in the theatre for the 4.5 hours, I just remember praying and just having such a peace that I wasn't alone and God was there with me, and it was just, he calmed me, my nerves. I wasn't scared, and he was my rock at that moment in time and continues to be my rock. And I just actually was thinking, if I didn't have my faith and the fact that I know I'm going to heaven one day, then I thought I'd be really sad during those 4.5 hours. But I wasn't, I was calm, and yeah, it was amazing, because I did think I was going to die. I didn't think it was going to, so sorry.
Well, not a lot of us have to face that moment so young, and to come through the other side of it. You're facing something, and as the doctor outlined to you, the reality was pretty difficult. Just the numbers of folk who do not recover from this sort of injury. And what are your reflections on that as you really were facing death in the face? What would you say to folk who, because we'll get to that point at some, it's the great certainty. What would you say to folk who are having to prepare for that? What would be your message?
I think one of the Bible sections that my uncle sent was, I think it was the day after Elaine was in operation, was Psalm 121, and that was something that was part of Willie's book that on the Psalms that we had as our kind of summer read as well, which has been a great help to many people in the church. But obviously that kind of paired up, and I found just the opening verses of that are a real help when facing death. It's I lift my eyes to the hills. That is lifting your eyes to the dangers that are ahead, anything that comes your way, and then you have to decide, well, where does my help come from when I'm facing, life ending, or I'm facing some suffering, or I'm facing some challenges? Well, my help comes from the Lord, who made the heavens and the earth, and there is nothing else. If you don't have that, then you have nothing, and you have no hope at all. And putting myself in the shoes of someone that doesn't have a faith, I don't know how people can possibly cope. I really don't. And it's not like it makes it very easy, or you're not worried, or you're not scared, or you're not frightened. You absolutely are, but you have a confidence and an assurance and a sure hope, And as I said earlier on, you know, the fact that Jesus died and was resurrected, that is the evidence of eternal life. And if, as we do, we trust and follow Jesus, then we will be spending eternity with him. And that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, it's so good to hear you articulating that, and it's not in theory. This is a lived reality for you. For you guys, you've had to walk through that, and to hear you be able to articulate, you know, the reality of that knowledge, that relationship with the Lord, and of real hope in the face of really difficult things. That's encouraging. So thank you for sharing with that. So the fact you're Christians, there's a real faith in the Lord, his promises, in the difficult things, but also beyond death. There's hope as we have to travel that journey, all of us. But there's also very real expressions of that now. And, you know, the church fellowship is a real tangible blessing from the Lord. What's been your experience of the church family over these months? You've been part of the Tron a long time, but it's not just the Tron, it's, you know, local churches all over the place. This will be common experience in different places, but just tell us on about your experience of the church family as you've been walking through these things over the past few months.
It's been absolutely amazing. Church family and friends have been just so supportive. They've been, you know, even just practical things like bringing meals to Colin when I was in hospital. You know, the cards,
flowers, plants. You like to separate your flowers and your plants. Lots of lovely gifts, lots of lovely messages, and people just being there on call. You know, so, you know, most members of the church family I spoke to just phone anytime, anything you need. And it's, as you said, Paul, you know, it's just a really tangible way that God shows his love and care for us. That's the structure God put in place. It's the church family that support you in these situations, and with people loving and caring for you with the same faith, is just so reassuring as well, because they'll say the right thing, even when they're not sure if they're saying the right thing. You know, it was always so helpful. And as I said, just practically, you know, folk were absolutely fantastic. And we could name some people, but we'll forget. So, well, I think Elaine's meticulous in her messaging. I'm sure she's messaged everybody personally to thank them for their help. So, and
just the prayers as well.
So I mean, that's the thing we valued most. You know, we really treasured people's prayers, and we just felt the impact of that. So people's prayers, and as I mentioned earlier on, you know, direction towards God's word as well for support. With the Holy Spirit as our comforter, comforting us through the words that he inspired. You know, so it's been a real blessing, real blessing to have so many good Christian friends in our own church, and as you said, in the wider church as well, and our other other groups.
And it reminds me of one night we were sitting in the E&E and we were reading we were reading Psalms, and I just remember there was just chaos everywhere else, and we were in the little
curtained off cubicle, just sitting
reading the Psalms.
So yeah, it was good. The Psalms have been very and I think, coming back to one of your other questions as well, you know, it's what's kind of comforted us as well. It has been God's word, and it has been really, the Psalms have been a big part of that as well. And just the fact that they deal with all reality of human life. There's no
the full range of human experience and emotions in there, isn't it?
There is no missing the point at all, and it's real. And you know, just to read the psalmists expressing how they've been feeling in, you know, human experience that we're experiencing right now, and crying out to God. You know, so there was a psalm for every occasion.
Yep. Yep.
I would say. So
Absolutely. That's a good thing to do, isn't it? To read the Psalms. It's good to sing them, and it's good to read them. And
depends who's singing them. Present company, obviously. Wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, that's really encouraging, folks, and it's just lovely to hear your reflections and what comes through is the Lord's goodness and His word, His promises that you've clung to. Because we're not promised that life will be easy or straightforward, are we?
Totally.
But it comes when the rubber hits the road and there's real difficulties. What's our hope?
Yeah.
And the Lord gives us hope.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely.
That's very good. Well, thank you for sharing. And just to come back full circle to where we began, it'd be good to talk about the band. Just to get some clarity on that. 'Cause I kind of hook people in with that at the start.
There's a bit of drama around about it. So Elaine was going in for her second operation.
Okay.
Right. So there's major manipulation going on here. So what she did was she sent a text message to each of my bandmates saying, "If I make it, will you do a gig?" So they couldn't exactly say no.
No.
So
it
is official. They all said yes. So we are actually meeting this week for a curry as usual, but we are actually going to make plans to rehearse and schedule a concert.
Well, watch this space then.
Watch this space. Early 2025, it will be happening.
Well, we'll be there and look forward to it.
Excellent.
Well, listen, Colin and Elaine, thank you so much for being generous with your time and for sharing with us and being so honest. But it's great to have this time to chat, and it's great to see you guys back out and serving in church. And we certainly missed you over the summer, but thank you again. Been lovely to catch up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you in 4 years' time. Good. Right.